Thank you for joining this episode of Lending Thoughts Podcast brought to you by Rocket Pro. Today I'm joined by Alex Meloche, who's our head of sales here at Rocket Mortgage Canada. We're going to be talking about salespersonship. We'll talk about sales process. We're also going to talk about mindset, which is just as important. So you're not going to want to miss this episode. Alex has a lot of great things to share with us. Listen in. Welcome to this episode of Lending Thoughts. Today I'm joined by Alex Meloche, who is our leader of sales here at our very own Rocket Mortgage Canada. Alex is a good friend of mine through the years here. Actually has an interesting story as to how we ended up at Rocket Mortgage, which I'm going to probably try to pull out of you as well as through this conversation. But
happy to share.
I think it'll be interesting. Alex is a talkative individual, very type A, someone that I could personally spend 2 hours with just talking about how to make the best ham sandwich if necessary. But we'll avoid that for our cooking show, which is
coming soon.
Coming soon.
Yeah,
absolutely. So, Alex, thanks for joining me today.
Appreciate it very much. I know this podcast is something that you've been working on for a long time. I've watched you, do what you needed to do to bring it to life. Very excited for you. Very excited for today.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining. So a question that I always start with, which is, can you tell us your life story in 60 seconds or less, please?
Yeah, I will try my best. Like you said, talkative individual, but born and raised here in Windsor to a pretty large extended family. As you know, mom had 12 or 13 brothers and sisters. Dad had 6 or 7 brothers and sisters. So, holidays, family visits, 50, 60, 70 people sometimes as the family grew. So, I had that big family vibe, average upbringing in an average family, average city. After I was done school, decided, as many young men do, to go out west and find myself. I call those years the years that I got comfortable with my shadow. Did some soul searching. Those closest to me know that those are my dreadlock years as well. The years that I joined a band and grew out some dreadlocks and quickly shaved my head and then got my work experience going. Those are really formative years. That's when you become a man in my world. So that's when I got into business, and that eventually brought me back home, which is great. And that's when I feel like the rest of my life kind of started. I felt like my value system was in place. I felt like I got some great experience in work, met my wife, bought a house here in my hometown, which was a great accomplishment for me as part of the end goal, and started our family with baby Isla around. This is the golden age of my life right now. Just being able to, support my family, look to the future, be there with my family. And things are looking great. The horizon is looking good. So that's pretty much how I got to where I am today.
Awesome. Yeah, the dreadlock story is interesting. The rock band, everyone needs that.
It is on Facebook somewhere, buried deep. Yeah. People have tried to find them. They've shown up in a couple of Teams messages here in the office from time to time, but everyone needs a dreadlock phase.
True. I never got there.
You never got there.
But I thought about it.
Well, you got the hair.
Thank you.
For sure.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So I actually want to jump into something that you said regarding the big family. It started off with a bit of a joke, but it's true. You're a very easy person to talk to and help navigate a crowd. A lot of times, even when we're in a crowd, I'm pushing you to the front so that I can move to the back and pull the introvert card out. But do you feel like that was formative for you, and ultimately, what led to a career, which is effectively, in sales? But I like to think about sales in the form of communication. And when you talk about having a large family like that, I'm sure there has to be a lot of communication taking place.
That's a great point. And, you and I think about sales so similarly. It's about effective communication. It's about deep care. It's about engagement, right? And I come from a family of storytellers. Right, Grandpa was telling bear stories at the kitchen table of hunting bears, and Uncle Ricky was talking about pirate stories, down in the Caribbean, and just all these great storytellers who you just sit there amazed, looking up and watch them tell these stories. But eventually, you become that person. I find myself doing that with my own daughter right now, and certainly those skills, they're difficult to teach. But everyone's got them in them to a certain degree, and everyone's got their own version of that. And I definitely apply that to sales all the time. Apply it to sales leadership as well, right? Being able to rally your team around some objective or rally your team around a mission that you're going toward. It all really starts with your ability to engage. Right?
Completely agree. And then maybe let's talk about the sales portion of your career. So you ditched the dreadlocks. You're like, we've got to make some real money here and build a life.
Yeah.
What does that journey look like in terms of, your career and what has led you to Rocket Mortgage today off the back of what you've done in the past?
Yeah, that's a great question. I believe sales skills are transferable from career to career, from job to job, let's call it, or like industry to industry. So I started out in collections of all things, but I had some amazing teachers who taught me about negotiation, who taught me about structuring a business and building a process, and who taught me how to, negotiate with people very successfully, let's call it, like build a conversation, build trust, build urgency, and then help people with whatever it is they need help with, whether it's collecting a debt, or then after that, I went into legal collections where I was, managing relationships with large organizations like Capital One Bank and the 401 Highway, doing some great work with them. But again, drawing on those same skill sets, so transferable from collections to legal. Then, believe it or not, went into dental. That worked for
naturally.
The progression is to go from legal collections to the dental industry.
Yeah.
But funny enough, working with dentists to build rapport and send their patients to the appointment booking desk with, a thumbs up to book that next appointment and what that conversation should look like. Again, engaging, building rapport, building urgency, and then getting the appointment, closing, right? From there, that's when I got my opportunity to come back home. I was in furniture and office supplies, working for a local mom and pop, Monarch Basics. It was actually quite large. They were most of Southwestern Ontario they serviced. But I mean, that was pure sales. We had an inside sales team. We had an outside sales team. We had a furniture team that would go out, do large jobs here in the city. We also had a team that would, work with smaller businesses. So the entire gambit of what makes a great salesperson or a great sales team, very effective was on display there. So really got to hone in on some of those skills and apply all the things that I learned through all those years there. And funny enough, and I know you like this story, so I'll jump in. It was 2019, and I had gone out as the director of sales to this new business that had just renovated an old bar and fish market that I used to hang out at as a youngster. So I went there and I checked out, Rocket Innovation Studio. Interesting. Okay, knock on the door per se, right? Met the building manager and took a tour. I said, so what do you guys do here? Right? I'm getting to know my client. What do you guys do here? Yada, yada, yada. He goes, this is a tech building. We do like programming and we do a lot of tech related things. And I'm looking at this building. I'm going, I know a sales floor when I see one. Like the Metropolitan Credit Collection floor was almost exactly like what we have, downstairs. And I go, I know a sales floor when I see one. And I know what Rocket is. I said, if you ever hear the word mortgage or someone in a suit and tie is on this sales floor, call me, please. I'd be very interested in speaking with those people. And that was in 2019 at some point, said mid-year 2019. February of 2020, I get a phone call. Hey, a couple people here talking mortgage on the floor. Just wanted to let you know. I go, okay, man, give me a name. Who is it? He looks around and goes, the only guy I know is this Bekim Merdita. And I go, spell it for me. Went on LinkedIn, looked you up, and then the rest of the story. I reached out to you and I said, hey, I know what you guys are up to. I happen to have your paper and pencil contract, which is tiny, being a tech first firm, but I'd be very interested in joining your team. I'm an expert team builder. I consider myself a sales expert and I would love to join, as you know. And you put me onto recruiting and they did their thing. Well, that was in February of 2020. And by May of 2020, I was here and, coming in as a mortgage associate to cut my teeth and prove myself. And I mean, you could attest too, it was a natural fit. You and I talking sales on day one, we had been taught and had taught others the exact same things in terms of pipeline management, in terms of urgency, in terms of, digging deep when times are good and, knowing when to rest if you need to, pull back from your business, just all these similarities in what we'd been taught. So to kind of round out your question, yeah, everything, no matter where you're at in your career in sales or, working with people, all of it's transferable. No matter what the product is, the product can change, right? How you present yourself, the level of care that you bring to your work, whether you're leading others or whether you're selling on the phone or selling face-to-face, all that's transferable. Yeah. So in my experience, all of that led to, where we are today.
So maybe let me touch on something small within that story, which is you said, hey, if that's Rocket Mortgage, I want to join. Why was that? Why did you have that belief? You were working for, as you said, a successful business already.
Yeah.
You were leading sales for that organization, and something told you before you even knew what it paid and what the future held and, what the ultimate business plan was. You said, if that's Rocket Mortgage, I want to go there. Why is that?
I mean, being from Windsor, right? If you were to look out one of these windows, what do you see? This beautiful skyline, Detroit, right? The massive city. And it's a very well-known fact that Rocket has done amazing things in Detroit back in the Quicken Loans days and all the way through to now being Rocket. It's just this fairy tale story. Mm-hmm. And knowing that the people that did what they did to Detroit and bringing it up, doing what they did, that there was a fleck of hope that they could do that, the same thing here in Windsor, was just too much to pass up. My grandfather built neighborhoods in this town. This town means a lot to me. I've written some blog posts about what it meant to me for Rocket to come here and to be a part of that, to be a part of what we could do to help my hometown and the people that I love in it, was just this amazing opportunity. So there was a lot of flash, a lot of razzle dazzle around it, not to mention just knowing that the pro's pro sold at Rocket, and being a part of that was cool as well.
Yeah. Want to play with the best.
That's it.
I love that.
Right? You consider yourself an A player. You want to play with other A players, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So Alex, let's dive in there a little bit, which is you started when we were just a couple salespeople. Mm-hmm. Now we've got an organization that combines sales and marketing and technology and finance and so many other things that we have in our grasp here today. Yeah. Let's dive into that sales piece, which is, what do you think makes a great salesperson? And what do you think makes a great mortgage agent? And are they one and the same?
That's a great question. What makes a great salesperson? I mentioned it a couple of times already. And, a great salesperson is a healthy balance of care and confidence in one hand, right? And administrative passion in another hand. So care and confidence, I'll start with. And I think being a mortgage agent, if you have care and confidence, you're going to be a great mortgage agent because you're handling probably the most impactful financial transaction of any one person's life, or the average person's life, right? So if you don't show great care and you make it about numbers, very, very likely that you're going to lose that client because you're not acknowledging the emotions, a lot of times the stress that comes with that. So first and foremost, being a great salesperson, you have to have great care. So what does that mean? It means that you don't rush through your call. It means that you don't focus on rate. It means that you are asking more questions, right? You are listening more than you're speaking. We call it the 2 ears, 1 mouth, right? Listen twice as much as you speak. That's a lot of the battle right there. Then you have high-level passionate administration, running a clean business. That means throughout your funnel, knowing what your day looks like. Where have I got to focus my efforts immediately today? Mm-hmm. It means knowing what transpired in your previous conversation with your clients that are already in your pipeline, right? It's so important. I'll tell you right now, we've all been there. You forget to put a note. You forget to put an update on a client's file. And your follow-up date comes up. You got no notes. You're freaking out. I'm going to look like an idiot. I barely remember this person's name. How did I get myself into this mess, right? You never want to be in that case. The client at hand is the most important person in front of you at all times, right? And they have to feel that. So making sure that you manage your pipeline very, very cleanly and very, very methodically is important. And when you mix those two things together, you get that A player all-star result, which is you've got clients that are working with you, want to work with you, referring you to others, and you are calling, assessing, and closing super efficiently. And those two things, when put together, is just a recipe for dynamite. If you can figure those two things out, you're going to be very, very successful. I don't care what the industry is.
Yeah. So I like what you said there, which is have a process, but have a conversation. Mm-hmm. How do you interweave these two things? Is it with technology? Mm-hmm. The way I like to think about it is like, I want to put the person who is on our team communicating with a client in the best position to have the best possible conversation, meaning that I want to remove as much as possible off their plate in the mundane, the task-oriented, all of the above, so that they can just focus on what matters most, which is understanding what their client is ultimately trying to achieve.
Yeah.
And you talked about that a little bit, which is like listening versus how much you're talking, but also you've got to be able to make sure that you're getting all that sort of like documented, recorded. Like, how do you think about making sure that the process meets the goal, which is ultimately communication?
Yeah, it certainly is. There's an operation to it, and then there's that communication into it. Your system has to help people remain organized. Your system has to prompt your people or prompt you, even if it's not on a massive scale, even if it's on an individual scale. You have to have a system. You and I talk about that a lot, right? Your system needs to be unbreakable. It starts with maybe it's just Outlook, right? Maybe it's just everything you do is in Outlook, and you take methodical notes. You set your reminders the same way every time. I'm a 2 reminder guy. I'm a 1 hour and a 15-minute guy. I got to get it on my radar an hour before, and then I need that 15-minute you're on soon. Right? Everyone has their own thing, but yes, your system has to complement what you're trying to achieve with every client. And this could be a singular client. This could be on a B2B level. This could be no matter what it is. I think you raise a good question in that, you have to have the technology today to support running a clean business. But once your technology tees it up for you, you yourself have to be professional enough to run that system, run that play. I like to coin the phrase, professionalism over politeness, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to have a system that you believe in, and you have to let your clients know that working with you means that you're working that system for them. You have to be very clear about it. And some people, it comes down to fear of confrontation, comes down to fear of failure, and they'll allow themselves to let their system deteriorate to accommodate a friendly conversation, which is poison. It's absolute poison for your business. They are coming to you as a professional. There's a couple people out there who are going to like this story. I liken it to hiring someone to build you a deck. And I'll give you the Cliff Notes version of this. If the person you hired to build your deck is asking you if you should use nails or screws, and which they prefer, you don't want to talk to that guy, right? You want someone coming in and going, here's what we're going to do. Now that I've got your design, this is the system. Bam, 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 bam. Within the next 48 hours, you're going to have yourself a deck, but it's got to be done this way. Your dog needs to be left in the house or else I can't go in the backyard. I'm deathly afraid of dogs. You need to clear out your driveway so I can drop off the lumber. And they've got a system, right? You need to implement those guidelines with your clients without fear of losing.
I think about appointment setting the same way, which is like, if the person for the deck's like, I can start whenever you'd like,
right?
As opposed to
not very busy, is
I can start next Thursday at 7:30 a.m. I go, okay, right. This is somebody who like clearly has a set schedule, a business that they're running, and I'm one of their clients, but they do this all the time and they do it extremely well and they're very dialed in.
That's right. Exactly. Your process, the way that you present that is going to build confidence in your client. Guess what? If you feel like that person is a professional going to get it done, what aren't you going to do? Go elsewhere.
Right.
If I ask you whether you want screws or nails used to build your deck, you're going to go, yeah, probably screws. And then I'm going to leave and you're going to go, I got to call this next guy. Hey, man, I need you to come and give me a quote for a deck. And I need you to know if you're going to use nails or screws, okay?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like you have to bring that confident element into your sale or people aren't going to trust you enough to close for them.
Yeah, no, that's really well said. So maybe let's go a little deeper on like the process aspect, because I know that one thing that we do extremely well and something that you're very keen to is the metrics around the actual sale and the sales process and the entire really mortgage process to understand where clients are at in their journey, how they're progressing through that journey. Are we caring for them? Are we advising the right way? Are we following up as we should? How do you think about metrics as it pertains to the actual sales process and supporting the mortgage agent?
Yeah, this is where, when we talked about what transferable skills from other industries do I use, this is something that has been taught to me from day one. You have to understand what your conversion looks like throughout the entire funnel. In our world, starts out with lead, right? Like, okay, leads in the system. What do we need to do to maximize allocating a client? Like, how often does someone pick up? And when they pick up, how often do we speak to them for more than 90 seconds? So important to know that milestone. Once you do, then you've got engagement, right? Now you're on the stage. Your salespeople are on the stage. Now that we're engaged, how often are we getting to that next key milestone? What is that milestone? In our world, you build enough trust to pull someone's credit, right? So let's use that sort of gap there. So between allocate and credit, we know that's where soft skills are on display. Are you building rapport? Are you building trust? And when you see an individual or a team lacking in that area or not converting as high as your best performing team, you know where to focus. You're probably getting blown off the phone in the first 2 minutes of the phone call with some kind of busy objection or something. You're probably talking numbers more so than you're talking goals. So you can then tailor your training for these individuals or these teams just by knowing what conversion you should need from lead to allocate and what conversion you should see from allocate to credit. Know it and make sure that you're training, like where the high end of that metric should be, and you know where to focus your training based on the numbers. Then from credit, you might go credit to application or credit to, say, submission to a lender. Well, now, what does that mean? That means that you've built trust, you've pulled credit, now you've got to present, right? Now it's time to close. This is where the rock stars do very, very well. This is where the people who lean on politeness versus professionalism, that's where you tend to lose a lot of clients because, okay, you built enough rapport, you've got a good personality, but now is your process very professional?
Right. I like you, but I may not do business with you.
Exactly. I would definitely go for a beer with you, but you're not touching my mortgage, which is basically what you're seeing. So then you know what to train there because you know it's presentation skills. You know it's about professionalism. It's about organization. And then from there, it's mostly administrative in our world, right? So you need to know the metrics of the administration. Like once we get a submission and the client's committed and you've got their signature, now it's about how fast is our process. It's about knowing when you go from submission to, say, broker complete, what's going on in that process? Well, you're gathering documents. The big tagline or the big, buzzword there's document fatigue, right? How often are you prepping your client throughout the sale and getting them to start gathering those documents? Or have you forgotten about that, run a more polite business than you have a professional business? And now they're getting bombarded with these document requests. We lose a lot of clients, more so than I would like to see. We lose a ton of clients between submit and broker complete because we have an opportunity, or some agents have an opportunity to foreshadow that or ask for more upfront, build more trust, right? So all in all, to round out your question, yes, knowing the conversion metrics throughout every milestone of your funnel should be the foundation of how you build your team, how you build your process, and ultimately what's going to allow you to scale if scalability is one of your goals.
Let me jump into the psychological there with you. Not that we're doing a scientific based show here, but I want to understand that it seems so obvious, and you say it with such high conviction that we very clearly need to communicate these things to clients. This is where clients struggle. This is where sometimes mortgage agents or any salesperson can struggle. If we know we're going to need this set of documents, and we know that there's likely to be a couple of bumps through the processing of the mortgage, and we're going to have to work collaboratively to make that happen. Why aren't we clear in our communication when speaking to the client to inform them what to expect and really tell them how it's going to go?
Yeah. This is like every sales leader, every business owner, every, let's say, chief revenue officer who's like dealing with the people who are tasked with selling, right? The fear of confrontation or the fear of failure is what's driving these politenesses, right? And that is certainly not a scientific word. That is what's driving it, is that you don't want to let them know that there's any difficulty because you fear that your client will reject that, right? And say, oh, I have to get you my T1 generals that might be with my accountant right now, and you need these by tomorrow? That sounds unreasonable. I'm not going to go with you. It sounds ridiculous when you say that, right? Like you've engaged this person, you've got them to commit, you've got their signature, and now you're asking them for the documents that you need to follow through on what they've agreed with. It's reasonable. But We don't do it because it seems like it's difficult. And we're more worried about being polite or more worried about making people feel good than making people feel supported.
Nice
So
over kind.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like, I've been staring at that piece of spinach in your teeth. This is your thing. I've been staring at that piece of spinach in your teeth, for the last 5 minutes. And before anyone else notices, you get one of those. Right.
Yeah.
And like, you don't want to be the person who allows someone to keep the spinach on their tooth. You want to be the person who tells them that there's spinach on their teeth. And in sales, that's where you need to tell your clients what to expect. And you need to let them know it's going to get more difficult before it gets easy, but I'm here for you. One thing that working with me is going to ensure is that you're going to have support. One thing that working with me is going to ensure is that it's going to be as easy as possible. And if you ever have any questions, I'm here for you.
Yeah, one thing that I found that's worked quite well for me in the past is just letting the client know how hard I'm going to work on their behalf. So for example, if I'm going to ask them to gather documents, I might tell the client, which is true, Mr. and Mrs. Client, I plan on spending about 5 hours or so processing your mortgage over the next 30 days between now and closing, as well as I'm getting full support from a processing team. In our world, we use loan processors and closing specialists and things like that. So I'm going to put a whole team behind this to write and close your mortgage. My time's going to be about 5 hours. I'm going to get about 3 hours of help from my team. I need you to spend 1 hour for me, just getting me the things that I need so that we can do our jobs. Are you okay with that?
Oh, it's so beautiful.
It's reasonable, right?
It's like, just be honest, right? Let them know that you got skin in the game too. We're in this together. I'm here for you. I'm going to be working twice as hard as you are for you.
Yeah.
Right. Most of it's going to fall on my shoulders. So important.
Yeah. So Alex, I want to switch it up a little bit to mindset, because I actually think just as much of importance it is to have a great process and to be a great communicator, this is a hard job to do.
Big time. Day
to day.
Yeah.
And something that I've always, taken away from you that I think you do a really good job communicating to the team is this concept of 1 day versus 100 days versus 1,000 days. And you often relate this back to goals and get people to reflect when times are really, really hard, because in the day-to-day, deals do go bad and clients don't always participate. And, we work in a collaborative and communicative culture here. It can be corporate at times too. And you're navigating that world, but touch on, if you could, this concept that you've repeated over and over inside of our walls, which I think our team lives today, which is, 1 day goals, 100-day goals, 1,000-day goals. What does it mean, and how can salespeople and mortgage agents benefit from that?
That's a great question. I mean, building vision, right? Leaning on that vision when times are tough is very important. And as a leader, you got to be able to balance, pie in the sky. Hey, we're all going to be millionaires now. Go out and get it. Right? You can't have that. But you certainly can't say, get on the phone every single minute of every single day. You have to have that balance. So, the day-to-day, especially doing it the way that we do it, right? What's an average agent's lead to close? 3%?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
3%. That means 3 out of 100 are going to close. That means 97 out of 100 are going to be no's. And you need to understand that going into your day. Okay, let's say lead to allocate, it's going to be 50%. Okay, so half the people that I call are going to pick up, right? Understanding, again, we're going back to the metrics. Understanding the metrics of the business help you with that mindset first and foremost. So communicate that with people on the day-to-day. Your goal today is to pull 3 credits. So because of that, you're going to have to call 23 leads, right? And you're only going to speak to
6 people.
6 people. And of those 6 people, 3 of them are going to allow you to pull their credit, right? We know that. So you get the mindset sharp doing that and saying, get ready to hear some no's, but get ready to pull those credits and celebrate them. So that's the other thing on the day-to-day. In our world, we have our team chats, right?
Yeah.
And every director, every morning saying, how are we celebrating wins today? Sadly, sometimes they celebrate wins with face in holes of myself. They might go scour the internet for some photos and, but it's all about making it fun, because when you're celebrating, we know the daily wins are hard to come by, right? So because they're hard to come by, you celebrate them in a grand way together as a team, and it keeps the mindset sharp as you're getting no's all day. So on the daily, that's how that happens. Then you look out 100-day goals. What are we doing this quarter? Right? What are we trying to achieve? These are generally around team goals, right? So this works both for individuals that are doing exceptionally well, so that they don't let their foot off the gas, right? Because they have a grander goal in mind. So you keep your top performers engaged, not checking out at noon on Fridays because they've already hit goal 13 days into the month. And well, I figured I'll do this. We find that so long as everyone knows what the larger 100-day goal is, you can keep people engaged, right? So as a leader, you're getting a lot of engagement from your top performers, but also those that are generally middle of the pack or maybe bottom of the pack performers, they don't want to let their team down, especially when you've got this great relationship and this great team goal that you're going after. They feel a drive. These are the people that you and I at 9, 10, 11 at night are thanking and congratulating when they're shouting out to the team that they're putting in deals, right? That they just got off the phone with a client who thanked them profusely late at night, and they're digging in and they're doing what they need to, not just for their own business, but for their team as well. And then you've got the organizational 1,000-day goal, right? I think about when we started our big purchase initiative a few years ago, and we had these 1,000-day goals, these righteous goals. Purchase specialized agents are going to lead the company in production. They're going to lead the company in earnings. That a third of our business is going to be through realtor referrals, and all these other great 1,000-day goals that we would bring up on our quarterly team meetings, right? We would just do quarterly check-ins on where we were with them. And that is important because you need, in the end, whether they're top performers, bottom performers, recruiting, whoever it is, they need to know the mission. Where are we headed and what does it mean for me in terms of my commitment? Because on a daily and weekly and quarterly basis, monthly and quarterly basis, I'll be here to do the work. But what does it mean long term? When I'm looking further down the funnel, what is that light? So those 1,000-day goals, keep that light burning. And then it's on you to follow through, right? It's on the leader, not just to make these BS, but to follow through and make sure that once you hit these milestones, not only are you celebrating, but that you're working with your executive team to make sure this growth is a real thing so that you don't, once you hit them, disappoint people.
Yeah.
Or under-deliver yourself as a leader.
I like to say that people ask themselves two questions when joining an organization. The first one is, where is this company going? And the second one is, how do I fit into that?
Yeah.
And I think 1,000-day goals do a fantastic job of helping people see past the immediate, because let's be honest, when you're working really hard at something, you want it all now.
Yes.
Right? I deserve this. I've earned this. It's kind of like when you're, going on a diet, you eat the first salad and the next day you jump on the scale and you're mad that you didn't lose any weight.
That's exactly
we want immediate gratification.
Yeah.
But the reality is the work that we do it's a long-term goal. It's something that you build over an extended period of time. And then it starts to compound over time like an annuity and start to pay you dividends for the years to follow. So I will use that as my segue to ask you my last question, which is, you've made a tremendous impact already, Alex, on the lives of many others. You've led many people in your day. What do you want your lasting impact and legacy to be in life and in business?
This is a deep one. That truly, you have this idea, but this is one that just changes as you get into these different phases of your life. I love the depth of this question. And certainly being a new father, Isla's only a couple years old here. She turned 2 in September, and Renee and I being new parents, I think everyone wants to do better than what their parents did. They want to build on the childhood that they had. So I think about that often. I want my daughter and my wife to remember me as someone who was there for them, someone who worked hard for them, and someone who cared very, very deeply about them and loved them very much. That's first and foremost on the radar every day when I wake up, good or bad. That's what I'm doing. That's kind of my why in general. In business, I've been very, very, very lucky to have amazing mentors. In many ways, I consider you one of those people.
Thank you.
Yeah. Among many, many others. I think about Greg Marks. I think about Edwin Acevedo. I think about Balaji Swamanath. I think about Todd Palsett, among, like I said, others. And they opened so many doors for me. They cared so much about what I wanted. And they cared so much about teaching me everything that they knew so that I could then apply that and then build on top of that, which ultimately has led to the opportunities that I've had today. And they open doors. And for me, I want to be the person who helps open hundreds, if not thousands of doors for the people that I get the privilege of working with, over the course of my career here. And I feel like it's going to be a very, very long one, but I want people to say that guy opened a lot of doors for me. because that's my way of paying back the amazing people that have opened doors for me. So that would be a very meaningful career.
It'd be a heck of an impact on the
Heck of an
world.
impact. Yeah.
So, Alex, thank you for your time. Appreciate you joining Lending Thoughts with me here today. And let's have some more great conversations like this in the future.
We shall, sir.
Thank you.